Welcome, traveler, to my vast world of nothingness. We actually start our 100-day journey on day 260. Well, technically day 259, but that's just not a very pleasing number. Anyways, because I already have quite a bit of playtime in this world, I've already built and acquired a lot of things on my previous adventures. And now it was time to start on a truly big build. And for this, I would need a lot of materials. So on day 259, I decided to convert all the coarse dirt I had accumulated into regular dirt that I would be needing for the project. Unfortunately, I pretty quickly realized I would need way more dirt than what I had now. So then I spent about 45 minutes in the nether collecting gravel to bolster my dirt reserves, and it was really just quite boring and uneventful, although I did find 17 ancient debris in the process, so that's pretty neat. When I emerged back in the overworld, it was already day 262, so I got right back to converting gravel into coarse dirt into regular dirt. And I did this for all the days from 262 to 268. Because you see, I had come up with a build that would be composed of floating discs that would all be slices from the bottom half of a sphere, and the overall look would be that of an overgrown ancient structure. If any of you have watched Laputa Castle in the Sky, you might recognize where I got my inspiration. And so I was pretty sure I would need a lot of grass blocks. And by day 268, I had filled a little over one shulker box, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but a shulker box holds 1,728 blocks when completely filled, and compared to the 80 dirt blocks you start with in a skyblock world, I felt pretty accomplished. On day 269, don't laugh, I was fed up with making dirt and decided to start on the actual build by counting out a circle with a radius of 81. And in theory, this might seem like a great idea, but it turns out that a radius of 81 makes quite a large circle. The reason I had chosen that size was I wanted the iron farm I have to fit within the circumference of the circle, and so I spent days 270 to 276 simply counting out the circle. And because the center of my island is also the center of this world, with the bedrock block being in the middle right at 0, 0, there was no doubt in my mind that this was gonna be easy. But even so, because I have a tendency to be overly cautious, I took off my armor and changed the sneak key from being hold to toggle, so I wouldn't have to rely on the strength of my weak-ass pinky finger to keep me from falling into the void. On day 273, I made my first big mistake while counting, but it wouldn't be until a few days later that I would realize my miscalculation. So for now, you'll just have to look at this crooked piece of circle. You're welcome. Otherwise, it was smooth sailing until day 275 when I had a little snag. I had somehow made the two halves of the circle uneven, and even worse, I noticed the place where I had completely miscounted. But not to fret, this simply meant a slight waste of time, and on the rainy evening of that day, I sacrificed a few cobblestone slabs to the void and fixed my mistake. By morning, on the 276th day, the circle was done. The next thing we needed was something I would only find in the nether, and I spent 2 days running around searching for a better fortress than the one I have near the portal, and for some reason past me didn't see it necessary to record this part, so instead we're watching me dig a long tunnel from the new fortress all the way back to the portal, which was gonna make traveling back and forth a lot more convenient. I end up like only using it for this one trip. On day 278, I began my mission in the new fortress. I know I haven't said what I was looking for in the nether, but maybe you can guess it from the fact that I was super thrilled to have found a nether fortress in a soul sand valley where skeletons, and thus wither skeletons, are much more likely to spawn. And if you haven't guessed it yet, now there's no way you won't know it, because that right there was the 6th skull that I needed to make 2 beacons. I only needed 1 for the build, but it's always nice to have a backup. I emerged back in the overworld on day 280. Now for some reason there was another 2-day gap in my recording, but this time I have no clear recollection of why that was, but I'm pretty sure I was just collecting more cobblestone and oak wood. I definitely hope I didn't just waste the time. Either way, it couldn't have been nearly as much of a waste of time as what I was about to spend the next many days on. So now I'll tell you about the biggest waste of time in this project. I wanted each cardinal direction to have a path lined with oak trees, and at first this seems like something quick and easy to build, right? right? Wrong. Because already while making the first path, I was blessed with some rather nice looking large trees. Now, is it just me, or have the way large trees look indeed been changed? Because I don't feel like they used to be that big. Anyways, I decided on the spot that I would want all the trees lining the paths to be large oak trees. Splendid idea. So I would simply have to chop down all the small trees and replant them until a large tree would grow. Simple. And I would even get a bunch of oak wood in the process. Great. Well, I didn't really anticipate how long it would take me to get lucky with the RNG gods of Minecraft to actually get all the large trees that I wanted. It took me until day 300, so around 18 days or somewhere between 4 and 6 real-life hours. So a little word of advice for both you and future me: when you want to make a build within a certain time frame, don't push your luck by relying on RNG. Now put that in cursive and hang it on your wall. Anyways, day 301 rolled around and I started the finishing touch to the tree corridors. I would hang lanterns in between the trees to light up the area in a way that looked intentional instead of just having the usual torch spam on the floor. And day 302 was spent doing the exact same thing, and on day 303 I placed the last lantern. Then I spent most of that day cleaning out my inventory and organizing things. In the evening, I started to prettify my animal pin and find a way to make the light sources part of the build. Then a thunderstorm started and I decided to skip the night. The next day, I finished up the pen and began farming birchwood that I would need for the roof on the layer below. When I had a decent amount, I moved downstairs and began making 4 paths going out to where the next ring would be. And so I placed slabs through day and night until sometime on day 306, where I moved to place even more slabs, but this time I was once again counting out the circumference of a circle. While measuring out the circle, I also made the downstairs paths match the one above, and when I on day 307 reached the 3rd path, I decided not to obstruct the water flowing down from above, because this water is actually pretty special. Because it was placed back in 1.17 and the flows haven't been updated, they actually cut off at Y level 0, and any other water flow placed from now on will flow all the way down to -64. Now, I'm pretty sure there aren't any practical uses for these water beams, but I thought it was pretty neat that I just so happened to have 16 impossible waterfalls, so I'm keeping them around for now. Anyways, I continued with the circle, but then something I had been dreading happened. I ran out of cobblestone. Because if there's one thing I hate, it's standing in a cobble gen, holding down left click, which is why I built a generator that automatically creates a big slab of stone when I'm not using it. So I scoured all my shulkers and mined the bit that was already generated to get what I needed to finish the circle, which was done by day 309. Then I decided to spend the rest of that day spacing out the next layers of the build in an attempt to procrastinate having to collect cobble. I mean, spacing out the layers was also an important task, so it wasn't a waste of time or anything. I continued on day 310 spacing out the layers, but I had to keep going up for more cobble and it was starting to get on my nerves. Day 311 arrived and we had passed the halfway point of these 100 days. And this was actually a pretty interesting day because in my eagerness to create the 3rd layer, I also accidentally created a mob farm. Now, it wasn't actually that big of a problem or anything. I just sniped most of them from the layer above and then took out the stragglers as I lit up the area. Well, most of it. I kind of forgot the outer ring and just went to sleep. On the morning of day 312, I noticed on my way down that my little waterway to get up and down also had become a pretty scuffed glow squid farm, so now I have a lot of glowing or whatever it's called. Not really sure if I'm ever gonna need it. The problem out on the ring fixed itself by despawning, and I could continue placing slabs and torches like nothing ever happened. And that's when Minecraft decided it was time for the rainy season, and I couldn't really do anything about it until nightfall, but when night fell, I forgot to sleep. Luckily, it stopped all on its own the next morning. A thing that wasn't lucky was that now I was so completely out of cobblestone that all I had was what was left in my generator, and since it only operates as fast as a single generator can, 10, which is pretty slow, I decided to make a second generator to double both speed and the amount of cobble there would be available in them when I wasn't around. This took me a little while because I didn't have any redstone components lying around, but with the help of some villagers, the new gen was ready and working on the evening of day 314. And so I grinded some sweet cobble until noon of day 315, where I went straight back down to finish the layer, and I swear this layer was just cursed with rainy seasons. When that was done, I went back up and added the matching oak on the sides of the pathways, and here I was kind of thankful for the hours wasted on chopping oak wood in the attempt to get all large trees. For the next few days, nothing exciting really happened. I just made the next layer, noticed I had some slime chunks in my base, and collected more cobblestone. It wasn't until day 319 where something absolutely amazing happened. Okay, bear with me. This guy can actually be extremely useful when you play Skyblock. And right at this moment, I wasn't even aware yet that a man with a trade I had been looking for almost since day 0 of this world had spawned right above me. And when I went to check on him, I became ecstatic because this man was selling sugarcane. That might seem pretty insignificant, but you can make some pretty core items with sugarcane. You can make sugar, which would have been great to have back when I was transforming villagers, but more importantly, you can make paper. And with paper, you can make rockets. Wow. Do you know where I'm going with this? Well, obviously, I've already been to the end. I have shulker boxes all over the place, but in my ender chest, I also have a brand new elytra ready with both mending and unbreaking 3. So after purchasing the 8 sugarcane that he would give me, I immediately set up a temporary farm, and now it was just a matter of time until not even the void could scare me anymore. In the meantime, I went back to the repetitive task of placing slabs in a big circle. And within a few days, I was down to the final layer, which was considerably smaller than the previous ones, but it was perfect because I would just be placing a beacon down there to power the island with whatever buff I wanted. So on day 323, I placed down the iron block base for a full-size beacon. Now the only thing left was to defeat the Wither. Our power levels compared, it would take me another 10 years of training if I were to beat this monster with physical strength alone. But there are other means than brute force to defeat an opponent. And so I knew I would have to turn this into a battle of wits if I was gonna secure my victory. Fortunately for me, the outcome of the fight was decided before it ever started. By using 3% of my true potential, I had calculated that the best course of action would be to trap the Wither in the bedrock below the portal, pull out my cellular device, and proceed to go AFK for the next 5 minutes. In other words, I just cheesed it. Oh, I really hope you enjoyed that bundle of major weep. If not, I'm sure you'll enjoy having me tell you to hit the like button and subscribe if you aren't already. Okay, enough of that. The important thing now was that I now had the necessary nether star to make a beacon, and so I went back to the overworld and placed down the beacon. The buff I went for was haste 2. Now before you start yelling at me that this world is empty, so what am I gonna mine? I was gonna use this to make my stone generator reach new heights of efficiency. I changed the generators to make stone instead of cobble because now, with the power of the beacon, I would be able to insta-mine the stone produced, making the collection of both stone and cobblestone much faster and a lot more fun. But before I show you the riveting content of me mining stone, I want to show you this. I had collected a large amount of sugarcane, and it was finally time to take flight. And so I took to the sky, and while soaring through the air, I finally got a good view of the build that I was actually creating. And personally, I was liking it quite a bit. When I touched back down, I got straight back to my now stone generator and decided to expand it with 2 modules more because why not? And with Instamine, I could easily empty out both of the first generators before it had time to fill back up, which made a lot of the stone collection just be me standing around waiting for more stone to form, but with 4 generators, this problem would hopefully be mitigated. And so I finished up the new gens on day 328. Right after that, I moved my temporary sugarcane farm up next to to the trees so that it would be more of a feature rather than an eyesore. Then I moved on to build yet another farm that I have actually had the materials for quite a while now. The farm was a pumpkin farm, not that useful, but the pumpkins do sell for a good price with villagers. After that, I mirrored the sugarcane farm to the other side of the trees. Now, I don't have infinite sand, so the little I have is quite precious, but right now I didn't have anything else I needed it for, so it might as well be useful for sugarcane farming rather than sitting around in a chest. Anyways, on day 331, I continued the mini farms next to the trees, and along these next trees, I opted for some nether wart. I don't brew that many potions, but I liked the design I had made for the farms, so I just went with it. And so, at this point, I had pretty much decided that this top layer would be filled with little manual farms, and in the evening of day 332, I added 2 more spaces for growing large spruce trees. On day 333, I wanted to start making the overgrown ruin decorations on the ring of the island. So I started by enjoying my new Haste 2 beacon while collecting some stone and cobble because I would need a variety of stone blocks, especially a lot of mossy stone blocks. For a while, I only thought of the recipe where you use vines to make mossy stone blocks because that's how it used to be for a long while, until I met a wandering trader who sold me some moss, and it got me thinking. It would make a lot of sense if you could use moss to make mossy blocks, right? And sure enough, you can. And the reason why this was so great is that it's a lot easier to mass produce moss than vines. And so I turned my stone generators into moss generators by just bone mealing a moss block right next to the stone. And this was so much faster than collecting vines, plus it also gave me azalea bushes and moss carpet, which are both great for decoration. Then it was time to start making the outer edge of the island. First, I would line the edge with a random mixture of these stone blocks, and to achieve true randomness, I pulled out some pro gamer strats called violently spinning your mouse wheel while placing blocks from your hotbar. Plus, I have the Logitech G502 where you can put the scroll wheel into freeze spin mode, which comes in clutch for this type of random building in survival. After lining the whole circle, I started adding some spikes that would add to the ruined look, as if there once upon a time had been an actual wall there. And by day 335, I was done with a quarter of the wall on the first layer, but I was already out of most of my mossy blocks, so I had to get back and make some more until I had enough to make the outline on the second layer. It was already day 339, and I knew my days were running out, so I decided that I at least wanted to fill out most of the top layer, so I spent days 339 to 342 adding some more jungle trees, a sheep pen matching the first one, and a llama pen matching the 2 others. After tapping and untapping the shift key a lot and losing some precious dirt and other blocks to the void, I thought up the idea to add the roof of the layer below, which was just gonna be a bunch of birch slabs, before filling out this layer. This would not only make it easier to build up here, but it was also a lot easier to build the roof from above rather than having to jump to reach from below. And so I spent a bunch of days placing birch slabs and chopping birch trees. Then I also built a cow pen on day 347, and it really was so much easier to build when there was already a layer of blocks below. And now I have a pen in all the wood types that I have this far. I really wanted a wandering trader to give me dark oak saplings for a chicken pen, but spoiler alert, that has yet to happen. Then I chopped some more birch, but it was so boring I didn't even record it, so instead we're skipping to day 350, and only 10 days remained. So now I had to hurry to at least finish most of the top layer, and by day 352 there was no longer any holes in the top layer. Either there was something built or it was covered up with birch slabs. So then I unlocked my scroll wheel and went back to make the detail on the outer edge, and the next day I continued the spikes on the layer below. And right below the places where the 4 tree corridors are, I made 4 entrances you can fly through to make it onto the second layer. And then again we have a little time skip that I forgot to record, where I'm pretty sure I just grinded some more stone blocks for the edge, and apparently I also created a chicken torture chamber because I think I wanted eggs, and since I hadn't gotten the dark oak yet to make their pen, this is what they got. On day 356 it was time to add the stone walls to make the spikes even spikier, and I'm pretty sure I must have taken like 3 years off the lifetime of my scroll wheel by now, but it's all worth it for the game of Minecraft. Anyways, I finished on day 358 and it was honestly looking pretty decent. But with only 2 days remaining, I didn't really see any possible way that I would finish this whole thing by day 360, but I didn't let that deter me from continuing, so I started placing birch slabs on the next layer down, and by now I had a pretty good rhythm down. Even so, by the evening of day 360, I hadn't even completed the first quarter of the second layer, and I was all out of birchwood. And then we reached the end of the 100 days, where I went straight back to collect more birch so that I can spend the next 100 days finishing this project in what will be part 2 of this building adventure, which is kind of an anticlimactic ending to this video. So instead, let's just look back on what we've made this far and ponder what I've learned. I've learned that 100 days in Minecraft is a lot of time, but it's not as much time as I thought. And I also learned that I apparently have the attention span of a 4-year-old, which means it takes a lot more time to edit 100 days than to play 100 days. And the last thing I learned, you can see the inside of shulker boxes when you're in spectator mode. So yeah, if you made it all the way through, I really hope you enjoyed this video. That was all I had for you today, and I'll see you in the next one.